Hey guys, this is Mr. Garcia. Welcome back to today's lesson. And today we're going to be talking about ranching. This is a topic that you've been discussing in your packet that you've been working on. But I wanted to take a little bit of time to make sure that we understood a little bit about ranching, especially because Brownsville is so important in the history of ranching. I understand that a lot of your textbooks and a lot of material will tell you that there are a lot of cattle trails that started here in Texas. And Texas is going to be one of the major headquarters of ranching in the United States. And one of those cattle trails that you're going to find that actually has its start here in Brownsville is a cattle trail by the name of the Chisholm Trail. As a matter of fact, if you visit downtown Brownsville today, there's a park called Hope Park, which is across the street from where the Ross is downtown. And if you go into that park, you will see that there's a historic marker, and that historic marker talks about the Chisholm Trail. And it talks about that's where these cattle drives started. And again, what ended up happening, guys, was these cattle drives would start because the cattle would be driven north. And the cattle would go from here, from Brownsville, all the way to the railheads in places like Kansas City, places like in the Midwest. And from there, the cattle would be placed on rail cars and they would be shipped east where they could be sold for more money. So that's how it would end up working, right? You'd have, again, you would have the cattle owners would drive their cattle north, and they would go all the way again, Dodge City, Kansas. They would go all the way to Kansas City, Missouri. They would go to places like that. And once they were there, they would be loaded onto trains, shipped east to Chicago, New York, Boston, where again, the cattle could be sold for more money. And again, the people there would get their beef so they could go ahead and get started, with their steaks and whatnot. So again, and that made the cattle industry very lucrative here in Texas, particularly in South Texas. Now, one of the big question is going to be, how are you going to identify your cattle? Okay, you're a cattle rancher, you own a cattle ranch, you have hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of head of cattle. And you needed to find a way to identify your cattle. And what ended up happening, guys, is they would, the cattle farmers, or not farmers, I'm sorry, the cattle ranchers would do something called cattle branding. And what cattle branding is, guys, is a lot of these farms would, I'm sorry, I keep saying farms, I apologize. A lot of these ranches would come up with a unique way of identifying the cattle. They would come up with a symbol. They would come up with a set of initials or a set of, numbers and letters or a sort of identifying feature. And what they would do is they would actually burn that feature into the hide of the cow. Or they would they would take this brand, they would heat it up, and they would press it onto the animal, and that way it would burn the symbol into the cow's body, into its skin. That way it could be identified, because one of the big problems that people had back then were people who would steal cattle, and they were called cattle rustlers, right? So again, and it's something that's even done today, and these practices are even done today. So that's why it's important for these cattle brands to be identifiable and to be distinct. And a lot of times, guys, in the cattle branding, you would find different ways to kind of write letters, and it became a part. There's really a whole kind of language, a whole vocabulary when it comes to dealing with um, cattle branding. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you some of the examples right now. Okay, for example, here you've got, obviously, I know you know how to write. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, right? But that is the letter A. Okay, and a lot of times they would add distinctive features to the letter, and they would call it something. So, for example, if you had an upside down A, it was called a crazy A. If you had an A, what you could do is you could attach some wings to the A, and that A now became a flying A. All right. You could also draw an A that was on its side, and that A would be known as a lazy A. And yet another thing that you could do to the letter is you could attach a couple of feet to the letter at the bottom, and that would turn into something called a walking A. And again, there are all different kinds of ways that these ranchers would come up with new ways or more innovative ways of creating these cattle brands. And sometimes they would mix a couple of the symbols as well. And sometimes they would have numbers and letters together. For example, some other examples that I've got here for you, sometimes you would see something like a W and an F connected, and again, it was called WF connected. Sometimes you would see a number 4, and then the number 4 would also turn into an F. Sometimes you would see that called 4F connected. Some of the other examples that I have here for you, sometimes you would do whole sets of letters. So, for example, you would have a letter J that would turn into an N, that would also turn into a B, and that would be J and B connected. This one was one of the more interesting ones that I saw while I was doing this research. That is actually the number 7 the letter U, and the letter P. That was called 7 Up. And again, you'd have some others here. Sorry about the dot there. But that one is called the double H. And again, guys, you had to come up with these new ways of writing the letters out because your cattle brand needed to be unique to your type of your ranch. A lot of times you would see the initials of the rancher. Sometimes you would see the surname or whatever the case would be. Again, sometimes you would see numbers that were incorporated, and you would see a lot of different things that were used to create these cattle brands. And again, sometimes you'll see some cattle brands that are different, and they are not necessarily, they might look a little bit different to you. And one of the more famous cattle brands that you're going to see here in Texas, or actually closer to where we live, is you are going to see this brand right here. You may have seen it, and I'll explain to you in just a minute, but you may have seen this here. Some of you may have seen that cattle brand. Some of you may not, but some of you may have already seen this cattle brand. And this cattle brand is actually one of the more famous of the area where we live here. This is called the Flying W. And this ranch is known as the King Ranch. It is the ranch that is near the town or around the town of Kingsville, which is approximately a little close to 2 hours north of here. If you get on Highway 77, if you're on your way to Corpus Christi, or if your parents ever take you up to the San Antonio area, you'll drive through the Iturria Ranch, which I don't have their brand. I might look that up for you in just a minute. But this ranch is going to be one of the more famous ranches of South Texas. And the King Ranch, it has lent its brand to a lot of different products. For example, one of the products that you'll see with the King Ranch logo are pickup trucks. The Ford Motor Company has partnered with the King Ranch to offer the King Ranch version of the Ford F-150. And again, they have a saddle shop in downtown Kingsville that you can visit, and you can buy leather goods and shirts, all different kinds of stuff. And again, you will see this Flying W logo. There is a mystery as to what this logo actually means. There are people who believe the logo represents the meandering of the Santa Gertrudis River, while there are some people that actually think that it's supposed to represent one of the many diamondback snakes that you would be able to find in and around the King Ranch. And it's a mystery because the patriarch of the King family, who originally started the King Ranch, obviously has passed away. So we don't have any records as to who actually created that logo. And we have others as well. There are some that are, there's one that's called the double circle. And again, that is known as the Borden Brothers Ranch. And again, I'm sorry, you guys, but I'm trying to look up, and I think I found it. I'm trying to look up the Iturria cattle brand, and I found one of them again, and that brand is the H. Iturria brand. Again, you can see the letter H and the letter Y. So again, guys, this is what you do when you're creating a brand for your cattle. Okay, so what I want you guys to do, this is going to be for today and tomorrow. This is going to be Monday and Tuesday's lesson. Okay, so you don't have a whole lot to do moving forward. You don't have any reading assignments to do. You just have to watch this video, and I want you to do me a favor. Okay, what I want you to do, your assignment is going to be this. And I'm sure you can figure out what the assignment is moving forward here, right? So what I'm going to want you to do is I am going to want you to create, I'm going to want you to create your own cattle brand. Create your own cattle brand. Right? So what you're going to do is you're going to you're going to sit down and you're going to brainstorm, and you're going to come up with what it is that you are now a cattle rancher. You are one of the premier cattle ranchers of South Texas. You own hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres, and you own hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cattle. But you need to brand your cattle. So what you are going to do is you are going to come up with your own cattle brand to be able to identify your cattle. Okay? Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. This is all going to be you. What I want you to do, a lot of times, again, you can use your initials. Some of you have a first name, a middle name, and a last name. Some of you don't. Some of you have a suffix to your name. Some of you have something specific to you, to your family. Okay? And I want you to use that, and I want you to come up with your own cattle brand. For example, you guys know my name is Diego Garcia the third. Right? So I'm going to do something that is going to represent my initials. Right? I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but you can think of what it is that you want to do. You can even reverse letters in some examples. Again, you can do different things. I really didn't have a plan to what I wanted to do here with mine, but again, maybe if I'm going to connect, maybe we can do that, right? So we've got the G, right? And then I'm the third, so I can do, right? We can do that. And then maybe we can connect a D to the G, right? So maybe there we've got a D and a G and the number 3, right? Or again, it depends what your initials are, what you want to do. Again, do you want to do your initials? Do you want to do a symbol? Again, right? Maybe, for example, some of you video game players will recognize these symbols. Maybe some of you are big video game players, right? And you recognize these as a PlayStation logo or the PlayStation buttons that are on your PlayStation controller. If you have an Xbox, I'm sorry, I don't have an Xbox. So, again, take something that is meaningful to you and turn it into your own cattle brand. And what I want you to do is, again, I want you to create your cattle brand. Once you've created your cattle brand, I want you to take a picture of it and I want you to send it to me. Again, you can send it to me on Remind. You can send it to me. You can have your parents email me. Whatever the case may be, it's your choice. So this is how it's going to work, okay? On Monday, I want you to do your research. On the computer, you can Google cattle brands. Or whatever the case may be. Whatever you have to Google, right? And that's part 1. And part 2, I want you to brainstorm and I want you to sketch what any ideas that you might have for your brand. Okay? Then on Tuesday, what you're going to do by Tuesday is you are going to draw your final cattle brand. Okay? And on Wednesday, what I want you to do on Wednesday is you are going to turn in the cattle brand. Right, again, you can take a picture or whatever you want to do. And what I also want you to do is on your computer, I want you to write a small paragraph and that paragraph is going to be why did you choose what you chose on your cattle brand. It doesn't have to be a long paragraph. A short little paragraph is fine. A few sentences, right? I chose this because it's my initials, it's my family name, whatever the case may be. I like triangles, whatever. I don't care. Whatever your cattle brand is, just explain why you chose to design that cattle brand. So again, on Monday, you're going to look up the cattle brands. This assignment, I will post this video. If you're watching this video, is because it's Monday and you should be watching this video right now. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, I want you to actually start drawing your final cattle brand. It's not going to take you very long. You can draw your final one because on Monday, you should be brainstorming and coming up with ideas. And then by Wednesday, I want you to turn in that cattle brand. Again, either a picture on Remind or a picture via email. And again, I'd like you to turn in a small paragraph. Again, you can email this to me, and you can write it out and take a picture of it as well, of a couple of sentences explaining why you chose to do this cattle brand. Okay, you do your cattle brand, you do the paragraph, you get full credit. All right, you've been doing really well. Again, you should be getting your progress reports very soon from your Texas history class, and you should find out that you should be doing well in your Texas history class. Thank you for turning in your assignments in a timely fashion. Thank you for communicating with me. Like I said, go ahead and look. If you need anything, you can find me on Remind. You can have your parents email me, DIEGOGARCIA, Diego Garcia at BISD.US, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Again, guys, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're doing well. And if you need anything, please let me know. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Take care.